Bird Box Barcelona was written by David and Alex Pasta and has been released today, the 14th of July 2023, on Netflix. So thank God it's a freebie, that's all I've got to say. So after a mysterious force decimates the world's population, Sebastian must navigate his own survival journey through the desolate streets of Barcelona. So let's take our minds back to December 2018, I believe it was. And that was the Christmas when everyone in the world pretty much was watching Bird Box. Um, it was a very lucky film, in my view. I think it ended up just being in the right place at the right time. And it kind of meant that we were all sort of free. We were sort of captive in our own homes, not through COVID, just because it was Christmas. And we all watched it because it was on and it had Sandra Bullock, who's wonderful. And like, I'll be really honest, it's fine. It's a very solid, very B movie-esque type film. It was a good, solid watch, but it definitely didn't make me think, wow, that was so good, I must have a sequel. So for me, Bird Box was always a bit of a solid 6 out of 10. Had a little bit of that sort of M. Night Shyamalan B movie sensibility that I think is quite enjoyable, actually. You kind of know what it is. Um, Everyone's sort of overacting a little bit. The dialogue's a little clunky, but you get a good time out of it. And you get to see a scenario play out that is so kind of far-fetched. I saw Old last weekend, so it's kind of similar to that vein. So I must admit, I didn't know that Bird Box Barcelona existed until about a month ago, and I saw it advertised and thought, oh, great, Georgina Campbell from Barbarian's in it. This looks a bit more like an edgier, kind of cooler version of the original. And actually being set in Barcelona as well, you don't get a lot of European-based horror. I thought it'd be quite interesting. And yeah, unfortunately, I really didn't enjoy this. So I'm going to break it down. Um, there wasn't a lot I liked, to be honest, and I do like to kind of go through a sort of pros and cons. As I said, I really liked the Barcelona setting. I thought that gave it some interesting kind of shots. You don't get to see Europe very often in horror. I know Barcelona reasonably well, so it was kind of cool to see a mainstream horror film not set in a sort of generic American city. Beyond that, I actually have quite a lot of issues with this film, and let's go through those. And as I say, if you, as per usual, if you just want to skip to the last sort of minute of this just to see my score and my sum up, then you can come back and rewatch this when you've had a look. I think my main issue with this film is, and I said earlier that I quite like the sort of B movie-ishness of the original, and it was serious, but it had a kind of, I don't know, I felt like it had a little bit of a sense of humor. And this film takes itself so seriously, like everything is so earnest. None of the characters have any sense of personality. They all speak in a very cliched way. There's no kind of sparkle to any of the characters. They're sort of there to get us from sort of point A to point B to point C. And I think that's the biggest issue here is you're trying to care about what is quite a quickly introduced band of people. And then the other characters that sort of join throughout the film, you know, we accumulate these different people. There's just not enough time with them, like to actually care, to actually be emotionally affected when they invariably die. And I think because the plot is essentially, it's a series of quests. It's like, we are here, we now need to get to there, let's stop here on the way and then let's go on. And you just know that every time they move and they do that next part, you're probably going to lose two or three of the characters and they're going to die. And each of the characters will grieve about that for about 30 seconds before we move on to the next part of the film. So there's no stakes. No one really cares about each other. I didn't care about any of the characters. And even Georgina Campbell, who I loved in Barbarian, whether it was because she's being her real British self. But again, I just found her, just her dialogue, the way that she kind of spoke about things was just so naff. And that was for everyone. Like there was just a real earnestness to the characters, which I just found really frustrating. Moving away from that sort of intimate house setting that we had for a large chunk of Bird Box, I can see how that would be interesting. And you get some really good shots of Barcelona streets, and it's quite cool to see that. I think the problem is because it's a sensory horror film and it's all about, you know, you can't open your eyes. We have a lot of shots of people with blindfolds on, sort of staggering around streets, like trying to find their way. That's just not interesting to watch after a time. It sort of takes away some dynamism out of the film. And you know, at least in the original, when they were in the house, they could interact on a more intimate level. You had a chance to get to know the characters, and you didn't have to deal with, oh, we're now going to have to watch characters fumble around again to get to point B, point C. So that was a real issue. And I think that in terms of the spectacle, yeah, great. You know, there was some good action. There was some good kind of explosions. It's not really necessarily what I want in a horror film. But by the end of the film, my God, they were throwing everything at the kitchen sink to make this work. And, you know, we've got like the two main characters end up on this kind of tower trying to get across to this castle. And you've got one who is just trying to get up to the top of the tower, and then a staircase falls away, and then there are birds flying at her, and then this entity, which hitherto has been everywhere, and whenever you open your eyes, it's there. She's now just walking around with her blindfold off, and she's having to ring a bell to summon the thing, which then walks upstairs. Like, it's walking upstairs as if it's a physical being. And in my mind, this thing had always just been everywhere. It was kind of an ethereal thing that lived kind of within this world. And then she has to fling herself into this thing, and there's this, I don't know, a lot of unnecessary like twists and turns. And then you've got the other character having this fight to the death, where the guy then has to pull out a knife, and then they're struggling again. And I just kind of, by this point, really wanted it to go away. So there was also quite a bit of internal like film logic that was really bugging me. So for a start, the subtitles. So because it's obviously set in Barcelona, a lot of the characters speak Spanish. One of the characters speaks English. There's a German character in it. They subtitle the Spanish, and then sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're just speaking in Spanish and you don't know what it is. The German character isn't subtitled because in the initial part, if she had subtitled, there'll be no mystery about who she is. But then once that mystery's gone, why is it she's subtitled? She's speaking German. So now we've got three languages going on, and it's so messy. And by the end, the English character is talking to this little German girl who just now understands English. And it's like, yeah, we're going outside. You understand, yes? And the kid's like, yeah, I get it. And it's like some of the film logic. Again, I'm a real like pedant for this. So if you don't like pedantry and you don't like nitpicking, my reviews are full of that. So if you like that kind of detail, I quite like picking holes, but it's quite frustrating if you're like, I just want to watch the film and enjoy it. I also thought the pacing of the film was really sluggish. So you're constantly hopping back and forth between flashbacks and quite cheesily filmed dream sequences, and then you'll be with different characters, and there'll be flashback within a flashback. I just again wanted a bit more of a linear narrative and just keep it moving, because it kept dragging it back. And for me, I know when I don't like a film, my hands start to get a bit itchy, and all I want to do is read Rotten Tomatoes reviews of the film, or actually, frankly, when I was watching it, was just seeing how long it had left so I could finish up and move on with my life. So, yeah, I didn't think it was great. I thought it was it took itself very seriously. It wasn't really any fun. I didn't think the deaths or anything were particularly exciting. There were no scares. I think I maybe had one little jump scare, which maybe got me, but I didn't think there was a lot of scariness to this, and not a lot of peril. You kind of knew how it was going to play out. So, as I said at the beginning, the original Bird Box I thought was a solid 6. This for me is a 4. It's one of the worst films I've seen this year, purely through just being quite dull, not really having any fun, and also I think like for just not really doing much as a supposed sequel to the original Bird Box. I don't really get why this film exists, and I don't feel like there was much passion or like engagement from the cast or the producers behind. Well, why are we making it? What does this film have to say? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you enjoyed the nitpicking. Let me know what you thought of Bird Box Barcelona. I would love to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure there's people out there that will love this. I mean, it's a very Netflix watchable film, but I don't know. I'm a snob, horror snob, film snob. I kind of wanted something a bit more. But anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.